Right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Sir Truth podcast. This is episode 12, and today, me and Coach Marty are honored to be in the presence of Feehan legend Coach Lum. Coach, thank you so much for coming on today.
My pleasure. It's like I said, it's my first one, so
you're doing great so far.
Yeah. So, I mean, we got a lot to unpack today. In the past, Coach, you and I have talked about, just things with different players. We even talked to a coach last episode with Coach Dolores. If you haven't seen that one, check it out. But Coach Lum, you've been here for how long have you been here?
40 years. It's my 40th year.
Yeah.
And count the 4 that I was a student here, so that's 44.
Yeah. Wow. So 44 years. Now, are you the longest? Yes.
I am the longest tenured teacher. There are people here older than me.
Okay, we got to get that in.
A few, but I think that most of them are retiring this year. But I am the longest tenured teacher, yes.
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm sure that's going to hold a lot of great stories, so we have a lot to unpack today. I know currently you teach history.
I teach one history class, and Max, you should know that I also teach health and fitness.
Of course.
Because we had that a few years ago. You were on crutches.
Was I last
Sophomore
year?
year?
No, that started, I got injured in the fall, so
okay.
No, but I do remember your class. So we had some fun memories in that class for sure. But yeah, I mean, we got a lot to unpack today.
So what was your career started at Feehan teaching? Take us through like the early part of your career, coming in, start teaching. What'd you teach?
I was it's gonna get rid
yeah,
of
let's
this.
go.
This is
Let's
a
go
lot,
back.
but
We got all day, Coach.
I was newly married. Had a job that I hated.
Okay.
I graduated college with a degree in health and fitness. No, it was Proposition 2.5. You guys probably don't even know what that is. Cutting things in education, cutting phys ed programs, music programs, a lot of different things. So went out looking for a job. No one's hiring, so I had worked my way through most of my early careers in a factory, a local jewelry factory.
Interesting.
And then I hated it, and I saw that there was an assistant coach needed here at Feehan, track coach, and that was my one of my passions. So I asked the boss. I said, "Hey, I'll come in early. I'll come back after. I need a couple hours in the afternoon." I started coaching as an assistant coach, and I had to be here.
Yep.
I had to be here. So the following season, I went to Sister Faith. Harding was the principal at the time. I went to her. I said, "Any phys ed jobs?" And then she said, "No, but do you like history?" And I said, "Well, it's my second favorite subject after phys ed." So she goes, "You're hired." Back then, you really didn't need a certificate or anything like that. Back in the early days, I taught history, social studies for 10 years. And then a new principal came in, said, "You have to go back to school." So I went back to school, got my master's in history, and taught history from the 84-85 school year through 2005 or 6, when Coach Sharon's dad, who was the previous gym teacher, retired. And I said, "I've been waiting 20-something years for that job," so I finally got the phys ed job.
Yeah,
Awesome.
wow. What was the biggest step, do you think? What's the biggest step from your transition from, working in that factory job to assistant coaching, and then what was the biggest step from assistant coaching to taking on that bigger role later in your career?
I knew that the track was my passion. I played football here at Feehan, and I got cut from basketball and baseball, so I did track, and things worked out well for me. So I had a passion for it, and then once I started as an assistant coach, it was just something I knew I needed to do. So I took that job, and then the head coach at the time resigned the next year, so I've been the head coach since 1985.
They heard the footsteps, right? They heard the footsteps.
Yeah.
So for 85.
Yeah, so and then you continue. So you've been coaching consistently for the past
40 years.
Yeah. So I want to. This is kind of where I like to unpack, some of the coolest stories. Do you have any big moments that you kind of like? Some of your favorite moments you remember from the past couple of years?
The other day I was fortunate enough that my first year as the assistant coach, I was able to be on the coaching staff that had Mark Coogan as an athlete. Mark Coogan, I don't know if any of you know that. He went on to the University of Maryland on a full scholarship, and then went on to become an Olympian. So he was a 96 Olympian in the marathon, and now he's a coach at New Balance, coaches the women's team there. And he goes, "Coach, it's the 40th anniversary," because it was the day of his birthday. It was our first big meet. It was against Dennis Yarmouth, down at Dennis Yarmouth, and back in those days, there was no officials. The coaches did all the officiating, so there was
Still kind of the case.
controversial calls. It was one of those meets. It was just back and forth. Came down to the 4x4 relay.
Wow.
And it was neck and neck. And then Mark Coogan's anchoring the 4x4, and him and this other kid are duking it out. And then coming off the back stretch onto the home stretch, the kid got a little too close to Mark. The kid hits Mark. The baton drops out of his hand. Mark comes in, wins it. We win.
Wow.
DY fans, coaches going wild, to the point where there were little fisticuffs.
Wow. Really?
At this first meet.
And this is your first or second, first year?
Yeah, first year coaching. And one of our good quarter milers actually knocked a kid out from Dennis Yarmouth. A parent came in and threatened me, but I was 24, 25 at the time, so that wasn't going to work out. So we were just telling all the kids, get on the bus. And we got on the bus and left, and we won.
No video of this, right?
No.
Okay.
No.
Wow. This is a boxing match or a track meet, Max? What do you think?
I'm not sure.
So that was one of the, so that kind of
It's a good start.
lit the flame for track, and so, and it can be exciting.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I want to talk to you because you said you're Matt Coogan, you said?
Mark
Coogan, right. So you talk about how he went on to coach at New Balance, and I'm sure that because you've been here for a good amount of years, what are some notable athletes? Who are some of your favorite athletes that you've ever been given the experience to coach?
I've been really, really fortunate. We've had some outstanding athletes. Again, my first year was Mark Coogan, and on his team there were some really outstanding athletes,
right,
runners and things like that. We also had some great football players who were sprinters and things like that. One of our good throwers was Andy Robertson. His son's a sophomore here now, Will Robertson. So he was up there. And all these big-time names, Peter Givens. These are my early days, But then you had Mark Coogan. And then I have to say one of the top athletes I think the school's ever had. This kid named Brian Kelly. Class of 1990.
Mm-hmm.
In the winter of 1990, his senior year, I brought him down to Syracuse for the national championship track and field meet, and he participated in the pentathlon, which is 5 events. Started off with the hurdles, school record. Went to the long jump, set a school record.
Wow.
Went to the high jump, set a school record. Went to the shot put. Now, shot put a little different, so he didn't set a school record in the shot put.
Right.
Then went on to the 1,000 meters and set a school
Oh,
record.
jeez.
Wow.
And he became the first high school boy in the history of the pentathlon to break 4,000 points. He scored 4,011. He had the national high school record from 1990 to 2003. So he held the national high school record for the pentathlon. So the best in the country.
Wow.
He's still, and then that winter also, we brought him up to the Dartmouth relays, and he entered not as a high school student, but as an open athlete, and he competed against all the college kids up at the Dartmouth relays, and he came in second. But what's unique about that is he had to throw the 16-pound shot and run the 42-inch high hurdles. He still holds the national high school record.
Wow.
When using college or the international implements. So he was one of the top athletes. I've had kids like Kevin Miles, who appropriately so has a school record in the mile.
Wow.
There you go.
And the 800 meters.
You planned that out.
And so guys like him.
So how many school records do you think under your watch?
Fortunately, all of them.
Wow, really?
There you go.
Except for one.
Oh.
That's girls too. And again, I don't necessarily coach the girls, but I've been the coach.
Sort of you've been around the program.
Except for one where the girls' discus record right now is held by a woman named Joanna Needham. She was a classmate of mine. She set it in 1977.
Oh, wow.
And it still holds today. So.
Yeah, so
That's impressive.
because I was just going to ask to kind of maybe jump back for a second because I know you did mention you were a student here at Feehan. So I was going to ask a couple questions. One being, now that you're coaching, you talk about coaching such great athletes. What in your mind is kind of like the tough part about coaching a specific sport when somebody's already doing something so well, and like how do you always manage to find what do you look for when you're looking at what are the common mistakes that you see, stuff that you've had to work on over the years to like coach, and what are stuff that you've got better at fixing for different athletes?
That's a tough question. My passion for the sport led me to go to clinics, and so I'm a jack of all trades, master of none. You know, I think my forte actually is, maybe until recently because I'm getting older, but knowing kids,
Yep.
you know, knowing athletes and knowing what it takes to motivate them. You know, but I can coach the shot put, I can coach
Right.
whatever events there are. And I think that that's a good trait that, you know, someone should have to be a head coach, so we can go anywhere. You know, the facilities. The track that I ran on, I should have brought a piece of it. I can show you.
You have one?
It
kinda
was
cool.
literally tar,
Wow.
the old
Yeah.
track. And the urban legend is that they built the track in 1961. Back in those days, it was all the tracks were cinder, dirt, except for Fehan's. Fehan's was made out of tar, but believe it or not, there was actually little pieces of rubber mixed in with the tar. But over the years, it just compressed, and by the time, you know, I was running on it and stuff, it was basically a road. But they measured a track. It's not what happened, but this is the urban legend, is that they measured 440 yards, which is one lap around the track, but then worked their way in. So lane one, when the way old track, prior to 1991 when they tore it up, you had to do like a lap plus another 100 meters for 400 yards. So it was like a weird thing. Then we went without a track for 6-7 years. Our track was condemned. Then they tore it up and they weren't fixing it right away. And so that track out there now is 98. And now this summer, fortunately, they're going to be tearing it up and we're going to be getting a brand new one.
That old, 98 for that
98,
track?
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
With some facelift and stuff like that, right?
Just one time they came in and put a new coat of paint
Yeah.
on it and restriped it and stuff like that.
Surprising.
Yeah, it reminds me of, I remember I was talking to Coach Reyna once after football practice. He was like, dude, you should have seen the school when I came here compared to what it is now. He's like, we used to have to play on like a grass field. So it's cool to see how like Feehan has been like changing over the years. And that's definitely like an interesting piece of history right there. I was going to ask to, you know, because we talked about like some great athletes you met or you got to experience when you were coaching, but you did mention you were a student here. Do you have any great moments as a student here? Because I also want to maybe touch on it after I finish going here, but I do remember a story that you told me when I took your gym class about Echo Retreat, and I want to ask about just a lot of, do you have any like, memorable moments as a student here?
Well, I have one that's non-track or athletic related.
Right.
That was, you know, show how things change, and I just told this story today. There was in our old locker room, and I have pictures of it somewhere.
You probably edit that in. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
The coach's room was a little different, and all of a sudden there was thievery going on from the coach's room office. Like kids in gym class would bring in if they had valuables, they'd put them on the coach's desk, lock
Yep.
the door. Then things were missing. They couldn't figure it out, so couldn't get away with this today. The coaches, I was a senior captain, it was football season,
Yep.
whatever, asked me to sit in the coach's room closet during lunch with a wallet on the
stakeout?
desk.
Wow.
A stakeout.
Wow.
And sure enough, about 10 minutes after, you know, everyone was gone, there was kids knew this. You had the ability to take a credit card and you could open the lock.
Oh.
And I heard it jiggle, 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 and I waited like 10 seconds after I heard the door open, and sure enough, the kid was right there with his hand on the wallet.
Wow.
So that was that. But getting to Echo, you know,
We're going to protect the names of the innocent?
Yeah,
exactly.
Or the guilty?
the only thing I can say is I think he came from Walpole. I
Narrowed it down.
don't remember the name, but it came from Walpole.
The Walpole Bandit.
And so that's one thing. And then with Echo, I always thought that, you know, I was a fairly religious guy, you know. But Echo, you know, what did I need to go on Echo for? But I went on it because everyone else was. And what I think I found out, and I try to tell the kids this, a lot of kids don't think that they need to go in there, but maybe they're not there for them. Maybe they're there for someone else. And that's kind of
Right.
it's the way
Right.
it worked out for me.
Yep.
I found out that certain things about some of who I thought I knew well, but I didn't.
Yep.
Then you find things out. So, you know, I tell kids, even if you can feel happy and huggy for a day, it's better than not feeling happy and huggy at all.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So,
I think that's great.
that's another thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what are some of the bigger, and Max had mentioned this a little bit before, and we're seeing this over the course of really over the last year in this building we're in now, and then in the playing surfaces. What are some of the bigger changes you've seen over those 40 years, and then for other in Feehan in general? Is it curriculum? Is it sports? Is it population? What are some of the big things?
When I was here, the school was new. I thought it had been around forever because my older siblings came here. But
Yeah.
when I started here, it had only been 10 years old, 12 years old.
Right.
It's crazy
So it was
to
really,
think.
really new.
Yeah.
But I always thought it was older because I had been around forever. And, trying to get kids to come here. Now we don't have that problem. The last 20 years,
Yeah.
we've had 500 applicants for 200
Yep.
spots or whatever.
Yep.
But back in the day, you're trying to struggle to get kids in. So it was a little different curriculum-wise, I think. I happened to be a really good kid, not very good at math, but Sister Pat Harrington, the famous Sister Pat Harrington, Bob, you're a good kid, so we'll have to help you out here, and stuff like that. But I don't think that happens anymore now, The demands here at Feehan, I think, have exceeded expectations educational-wise. The kids that we send off to school are incredible. I think that the new facilities are just, going to put us into that 21st century type thing.
Yeah.
And then people say, well, what's so great about Feehan? I say, well, look at what you get for the price. And I think we still are one of the least expensive private Catholic schools in the state of Massachusetts. Maybe in Rhode Island. I think, some other schools might be close, but most of the other well-known schools are way more than us. And so I think what Feehan's done here is a great job, affordability, helping people who might not be able to afford it, that type of stuff. Athletically, I think it's just we've come into the new era with, the amount of transportation, the league. That was a big change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Athletically, that was a big change.
Right.
We used to be in some great leagues. When I was teaching, when I was a student here, Attleboro, Attleboro, Dartmouth High School, New Bedford High School, Falmouth High School, Barnstable High School, Seekonk High School, the Somerset High School. These were all in our league, and that was a great league.
Yeah.
And even when I started coaching here, it was a league similar to that, not quite as big, but it was Dartmouth, Somerset, Stang, Conley, and all those schools. And it was a nice little league, but as you guys know, the league has changed.
Yeah.
It's changed. It's tough.
Feehan seems to have been dominating the CCL in terms of sports in the past couple of years, especially because, you look at football. You could. It's not to take away anything from Feehan, but a lot of sports were very dominant in things like girls basketball. It's like I remember people would stop showing up to the games because you just knew it was going to be a blowout. I know with track in the past couple of years, it's been like it's a pretty big expectation to win against these teams, and it kind of leads me into another question. I feel like technology a lot nowadays when it comes to sports has been changing a lot, and I want to ask you, Coach Lum, especially because in track, I know you always see different things now with new types of shoes, people designing starting blocks, all this, all the medical aspect of it. What's something that you've seen, like a big change in technology, or anything that you've noted that's just been like, wow, like you take a step back from what you've seen in like previous years and just been like, this changed the game?
Well, the shoes are a big thing nowadays.
Yeah.
It started at the
Here
pro
goes
level.
some of your runners right here.
It started,
Oh, yeah.
It started at the pro level. The girls teams, they're going to be girls teams. Watch out for them in the future.
Love it.
The shoes that you mentioned, Max, is true. I didn't believe it started at the higher levels, but now all of our top runners have these new carbon fiber, insoles and stuff like that. And in talking to Mark Coogan, who is a professional coach, he goes, they can take off, 1 or 2 seconds per lap.
Yeah, crazy.
And so kids' times are getting faster. And I don't know if you followed there's a 17-year-old high school kid right now, I just read about him this morning, who has the leading time in the 100 meters in the world. In the world.
Out of where? Texas, Florida?
Florida.
Makes sense.
9.96 he got clocked at, which,
Wow.
Will he make the Olympic team?
Well, the Olympic, he'll probably go to the Olympic trials.
Yep.
He'll definitely be at the Olympic trials this summer.
Yep.
They're in June, end of June. And then on any given day, at the U.S. Olympic trials, you have to be top 3 that day, as long as you meet the qualifying standard to go to the Olympics. So you got to beat some. The United States has some pretty good runners right now.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Olympics, are you excited? It's an Olympic year. It's
Always,
a summer year.
Always.
Yeah.
And you've been to the trials before?
I went to the Olympic trials in 12 out in Eugene. I went out in 16. Had plans to go in 20. COVID.
Yep.
But yeah, it's if you're a track guy, you cannot beat Eugene, Oregon. It is the track.
Explain
Mecca.
to the listeners what does that mean?
You
The
know,
Mecca, right? It's track town.
It's track town. It's Nike town. Nike supports and sponsors the University of Oregon.
Right.
As you know, I mean, the football team there too is really good. They get the greatest uniforms. I think always the flashiest
Yeah.
uniform.
Oh, yeah.
But you walk down the main streets of Eugene, Oregon, and people are actually talking about track meets. They're
Which
talking-
is like foreign in other.
right. You're
Yeah.
not going to see that. You know, they're talking. You go to pizza joints, and the pizzas are named, the sandwiches are named after track events and stuff like
Yeah,
that. You know, so it's just track heaven.
And yeah, I think that is interesting because I remember I toured University of Kentucky about a month or two ago, and it's cool there because it's like there people are very interested in the horse racing, which is cool that track can kind of spread its own culture in different places. And you talk about how Nike was big in Oregon, how they got a lot of sponsors. Something that I read up on, which kind of led me to asking about the shoe question, was I watched a video a couple weeks ago about like there's a certain type of shoe that was banned from the Olympics or something because it was, I don't know, so dominant, and just stuff like that I thought was interesting. And I do think it's cool. You talk about how different shoes now can shave off like a second. There's also, and even now they have shoes that are supposed to be better for stuff like ACL tears and stuff. There's a certain type of cleat now where the rivets on at the bottom they move and stuff. I don't know. It's just all this technology is just crazy to me now.
Yeah, I mean, one of the you asked about some of the highlights. I should not forget this. In 2009, our girls cross country team won the Nike Regional Championships.
Oh wow!
And that allowed us for Nike to fly the 7 girls and 2 coaches out to Portland, but racing in Eugene, Oregon, for the Nike Cross Country National Championships.
Wow!
And that was a really cool experience, particularly for the girls, because track kids, particularly around here, they don't get treated like the Division I football players, but they did that time. Everything was paid for, every meal, every bit of transportation. They walked into their rooms, and there was like a Nike warm-up suit and a pair of spikes and a pair of running shoes, and all the girls got that. And that was a really, really cool. That was my first experience actually going out to Oregon. Yeah. And that's why I decided after that, I said in 12 I had to go out, in 16 I had to go out and stuff like that. So that was really cool.
That was a Feehan team that ran out there? How'd they do?
I think they ended up being like 32 total teams. I think we finished in 20th or something like that. But you're competing against...
Oh, the best in... Yeah.
And then I went back actually in 2013 with an individual, Abby McNulty, who went on to Stanford University, who became an All-American at Stanford. She went out as an individual, qualified, so I flew out with her. And so again, that just got the bug for being out there.
Yeah, so you said that was like a girls team that did that, and you said earlier how the girls team that's coming up to watch out for, and that's something too that I've noticed at my time here at Feehan is like the girls sports here are extremely dominant. If you look at like the soccer, because you're talking about like how they walk into the hotel room and stuff. I remember just recently our girls soccer team had like a similar experience, and it's just I think it's cool to see how that part of sports can be so dominant. And I know now in track there's even controversy over stuff like that with transgender athletes, all that stuff. But I think the world of men and women's sports is like changing rapidly, and I think it's something really interesting to follow up on. So I definitely find that super interesting.
Yeah.
But to pull away from the whole athletic point of your life, I want to talk about some of the things you like to do outside of track, because I know your life must be very track heavy, gym heavy, and all this stuff. So what are some of the stuff that Coach Lum likes to do when he's not coaching?
Take us into the Coach Lum world.
Right.
Well, it really is pretty boring. I love to hike.
Yep.
I like to hike. Got an experience a couple at the end of last winter, I got an experience a couple